It was a routine morning in the city, but for federal prosecutor Marcus Ellis, it would turn into a nightmare. Known for his dedication to justice and relentless pursuit of criminals, Marcus was respected in his profession. Yet that day, as he drove home from a late court session, his life would change forever. At a quiet intersection, a police cruiser pulled him over abruptly. The officer, a man with a history of racial bias complaints, demanded Marcus step out of the car without explanation. Marcus complied, showing his badge and calmly asking the reason. Instead of answers, the officer's demeanor grew hostile. What started as a simple traffic stop escalated quickly. Words turned to shoves, and shoves into a violent assault. Marcus, despite identifying himself as a federal prosecutor, was beaten severely, sustaining serious injuries. News of the incident spread rapidly, igniting outrage across the city and beyond. How could a man sworn to uphold the law become a victim of such brutality at the hands of those meant to protect? The officer's actions led to an intense investigation, exposing a pattern of racial discrimination and excessive force within the department. The federal prosecutor's case became a symbol, a stark reminder of the injustices many face. And when the trial came, the verdict was clear. The officer was sentenced to the harshest prison term allowed by law, a powerful statement that racism and abuse of power would not be tolerated. But for Marcus, the road to recovery and justice was just beginning. Marcus Ellis awoke in a sterile hospital room, the dull ache of his injuries a constant reminder of the violence he endured. Tubes and monitors surrounded him, each beep punctuating the weight of the moment. Though battered, his spirit remained unbroken. The news of his assault had sent shockwaves throughout the legal community and civil rights organizations. Vigils were held, protests erupted, and calls for justice echoed in city halls and courtrooms alike. Investigators uncovered a disturbing pattern. The officer, whose name was Daniel Harris, had multiple complaints filed against him, most dismissed or overlooked. His reputation for aggressive tactics masked a deep-seated bias that had gone unchecked for years. Marcus's case was taken up by federal authorities, ensuring a thorough and impartial investigation. The public demanded accountability, refusing to let this be swept under the rug. During the trial, testimonies revealed the extent of Harris's misconduct, not only against Marcus but numerous others. The courtroom became a battleground for truth and justice, with Marcus seated firmly as both victim and symbol of a broken system. Despite the physical and emotional scars, Marcus delivered a powerful statement about resilience, the importance of justice, and the need to reform law enforcement practices. When the jury returned with a verdict sentencing Harris to the harshest prison term permitted, many saw it as a crucial victory for justice. Yet for Marcus, it was only one step on a long journey toward healing and systemic change. His story became a rallying cry, a reminder that no one is above the law, especially those sworn to uphold it. The aftermath of the trial was both a victory and a challenge for Marcus Ellis. Physically, he faced months of rehabilitation to recover from broken ribs, a concussion, and deep bruises. But the emotional and psychological toll was far more complex, a battle against trauma and the stark reality of systemic injustice. Support poured in from colleagues, community leaders, and strangers moved by his story. Fundraisers helped cover medical bills, and advocacy groups rallied to promote police reform. Marcus used this platform to push for changes that could prevent others from suffering similar fates. He testified before lawmakers, sharing firsthand accounts of brutality and systemic failure. His legal expertise and personal experience made him a powerful voice for change, urging transparency, accountability, and better training in law enforcement. Meanwhile, within the department, reforms were slowly implemented. Body cameras became mandatory, independent oversight committees were established, and officers with histories of misconduct faced stricter consequences. Marcus's case sparked national conversations about race, power, and justice, highlighting the urgent need to address deep-rooted inequalities. Yet, despite progress, Marcus remained vigilant. He knew that true transformation required sustained effort and cultural change beyond policy shifts. His journey was a testament to resilience, a federal prosecutor who survived brutality and emerged a fierce advocate for justice and equality. The harshest sentence handed down to Officer Harris was a clear message: racial violence and abuse of power would face consequences. But for Marcus Ellis, the work to heal his city and its institutions had only just begun. Marcus's journey through recovery was marked not only by physical healing, but by a profound transformation of purpose. The violence he endured could have silenced him, but instead, it ignited a fire within, a resolve to confront systemic racism and injustice head-on. His days became filled with meetings, speeches, and collaborations with activists, policymakers, and community organizations. He sought to bridge the often divided worlds of law enforcement and the communities they served. One of his most significant initiatives was the establishment of a task force dedicated to investigating and reforming police misconduct. The task force aimed to promote transparency, implement stricter accountability measures, and ensure victims had a voice in the process. Marcus also worked to create support networks for survivors of police violence, understanding the importance of healing on both personal and collective levels. Through his efforts, the city began to see incremental but meaningful changes. Officers received enhanced training on bias and de-escalation, and community policing efforts fostered greater trust. Yet, the shadows of past injustices lingered, and Marcus knew that vigilance was essential. The journey toward equity was long and fraught with setbacks, but each step forward was a victory worth fighting for. His personal story remained a beacon, a reminder that even in the face of cruelty and betrayal, the pursuit of justice must continue with unwavering courage. And as Marcus stood before crowds, in courtrooms, and at community forums, his message was clear: change was possible, but only if society faced its truths and committed to action. Marcus Ellis's commitment to justice soon expanded beyond policy reform. Recognizing that true change required education and awareness, he partnered with local schools and universities to develop programs that fostered dialogue about racial bias, legal rights, and civic responsibility. These programs invited students, law enforcement officers, and community members to engage in honest conversations, breaking down walls of misunderstanding and building bridges of empathy. Marcus frequently visited classrooms, sharing his story not as a tale of victimhood, but as a call to action. He emphasized the power each individual held to challenge injustice and promote fairness in their daily lives. The community, once fractured by fear and mistrust, began to heal in small but significant ways. Neighborhood watch groups collaborated with police in new ways, and citizens felt increasingly empowered to speak up. Yet Marcus was careful to remind everyone that progress required sustained effort, patience, and courage. He often quoted a line from one of his favorite poems: "Justice is what love looks like in public." Through his advocacy, Marcus inspired many to view justice not as an abstract ideal, but as a tangible goal, one achievable through collective commitment. The harsh prison sentence given to Officer Harris stood as a landmark moment, symbolizing that accountability could be achieved even against entrenched systems. But Marcus's story was far from over. He understood that healing and transformation were journeys, and he was ready to lead the way. The ripples of Marcus Ellis's advocacy reached far beyond his city. His work attracted national attention, prompting conversations about police reform across the country. He became a sought-after speaker at conferences, law schools, and community gatherings, always emphasizing the need for systemic change and compassion. Marcus collaborated with other survivors of police violence, forming coalitions that pushed for legislative reforms at state and federal levels. These groups worked tirelessly to strengthen laws around police accountability, training, and the use of force. Despite the accolades, Marcus remained grounded, remembering the pain of his own experience and the faces of countless others still seeking justice. He often met privately with victims and their families, offering support and guidance. He also focused on mentoring young lawyers and activists, encouraging them to carry forward the fight for equality and fairness in the justice system. Throughout these efforts, the memory of his assault lingered, not as a source of bitterness but as a catalyst for change. Marcus understood the power of his story, not only to expose injustice but to inspire hope. The sentence handed down to Officer Harris was a victory, yes, but the broader battle for equity was ongoing. Marcus Ellis was determined to be a leader in that fight, bridging divides and advocating for a justice system that truly served all. As Marcus continued his crusade for justice, he also sought to humanize the often fraught relationship between law enforcement and communities of color. He initiated dialogues and forums where police officers, community leaders, and citizens could come together, share stories, and find common ground. He understood that lasting reform required not only policy changes but a cultural shift within police departments themselves. To that end, Marcus advocated for comprehensive training programs focusing on empathy, implicit bias, and de-escalation tactics. His work led to the creation of pilot programs in several cities, where officers received education designed to transform policing practices from within. Meanwhile, Marcus remained a pillar in his own community. He organized support groups for those affected by police violence and established legal aid clinics to assist victims in navigating complex justice systems. Throughout it all, Marcus maintained a steadfast commitment to healing and progress, believing that forgiveness and accountability could coexist. He often said, "Justice without compassion is hollow. We must hold the system accountable, but also build bridges to heal." His journey inspired many, proving that one person's courage could ignite a movement toward equity and understanding. The scars he bore were a testament to his resilience, and his voice a beacon calling for a more just and humane society. And though the fight was far from over, Marcus Ellis stood ready, undaunted, determined, and hopeful. Marcus Ellis's efforts began to influence not only local and national policies but also the hearts and minds of everyday citizens. His story was featured in documentaries, podcasts, and books, shining a spotlight on the realities of police violence and systemic racism. Through these platforms, Marcus emphasized the importance of community engagement, urging individuals to participate in civic processes and hold elected officials accountable. He collaborated with grassroots organizations to foster voter registration drives, community policing initiatives, and youth leadership programs. Marcus believed that empowering communities to have a voice was fundamental to creating lasting change. At home, he found strength in his family and friends, his support network who reminded him of the humanity and love worth fighting for. The officer's harsh prison sentence served as a legal milestone, but Marcus was clear that justice was a journey, not a destination. His message was one of hope tempered with realism. Change required vigilance, persistence, and collective action. He continued to challenge both the legal system and society to confront uncomfortable truths and work toward a future where all could live without fear. As he looked ahead, Marcus held on to the belief that through courage and solidarity, a more just and equitable world was possible. The momentum of Marcus Ellis's advocacy brought about tangible reforms. Several cities enacted stronger laws governing police conduct, including mandatory use of body cameras and independent oversight commissions. These changes aimed to prevent abuses like the one Marcus endured. Marcus worked closely with legislators to draft bills promoting transparency and accountability. He also testified before congressional committees, sharing his experience and expertise to influence national policy. Meanwhile, grassroots organizations flourished, empowered by Marcus's leadership and example. Community members organized patrols, workshops, and forums to foster dialogue and cooperation between police and residents. Marcus believed that rebuilding trust required honest conversations and mutual respect. He encouraged officers and citizens alike to listen deeply and recognize their shared humanity. His journey, from victim to advocate, served as a powerful narrative of resilience and hope, inspiring countless individuals to take up the cause of justice. Despite the progress, Marcus acknowledged the road ahead remained long. Structural racism and entrenched biases could not be dismantled overnight. Yet with each victory, no matter how small, the dream of equitable justice drew closer. Marcus Ellis stood firm, a beacon of perseverance, compassion, and unwavering commitment to change. Marcus Ellis understood that true reform required investment in education and training, not only for police officers but for entire communities. He championed programs teaching conflict resolution, cultural competency, and legal rights, fostering environments where understanding could flourish. He partnered with schools to integrate social justice curricula, inspiring young people to become informed, engaged citizens. These initiatives empowered a new generation to advocate for equity and fairness. Marcus also worked to support families affected by police violence, creating networks offering counseling, legal assistance, and community solidarity. Healing, he believed, was essential for progress. His leadership extended beyond policy. He embodied the change he sought, meeting with diverse groups, listening to stories, and amplifying voices often ignored. Though the trauma of his assault remained, Marcus transformed it into fuel for activism, justice, and hope. The harsh prison sentence for Officer Harris was a landmark, but Marcus's vision reached further, a society where abuse of power was unthinkable and justice was truly blind. As he continued to fight, Marcus Ellis remained a symbol of courage, resilience, and the unyielding pursuit of a better tomorrow. Marcus's efforts began to reshape the very culture of law enforcement agencies. Through workshops and training programs he helped design, officers were taught to recognize implicit biases and to approach their duties with empathy and respect. He collaborated with police departments to establish early warning systems identifying officers prone to misconduct, allowing for timely intervention and support. Community policing initiatives flourished under his guidance, fostering partnerships between officers and the neighborhoods they served. These efforts helped reduce tensions and build trust, one interaction at a time. Marcus also emphasized the importance of mental health resources for law enforcement personnel, recognizing that well-supported officers are better equipped to serve their communities fairly and effectively. His holistic approach to reform gained praise nationwide, inspiring other jurisdictions to adopt similar models. Despite facing resistance from entrenched interests, Marcus remained steadfast, knowing that true change often comes slowly but is worth the struggle. The ring on his finger, a symbol of personal love and resilience, reminded him daily of the support and strength that fueled his fight. His story, marked by pain but defined by purpose, became a testament to the power of justice tempered with compassion. And as he continued his work, Marcus Ellis embodied hope, not just for himself, but for a future where every person could feel safe, respected, and valued under the law. Marcus Ellis's work also focused on policy advocacy, pushing for legislation that would codify reforms and protect citizens' rights. He lobbied for laws mandating transparency in police operations, accessible complaint processes, and independent investigations of misconduct. His testimony before lawmakers was powerful and personal, illustrating the human cost of unchecked power and systemic racism. He called for comprehensive change, training, accountability, community engagement, and investment in social services to address root causes of crime. Grassroots movements galvanized around his leadership, forming coalitions that amplified calls for justice nationwide. These groups mobilized voters, organized protests, and engaged in dialogue with elected officials, demanding meaningful action. Marcus understood the importance of bridging divides, not only between police and communities but also across political lines. He advocated for bipartisan support, emphasizing that justice transcends politics. His efforts helped shift the national conversation, bringing issues of racial bias and police brutality to the forefront of public consciousness. Yet Marcus remained humble, recognizing that real progress requires ongoing vigilance and collaboration. The sentence of Officer Harris was a landmark but not the endpoint. For Marcus Ellis, the journey toward a just and equitable society continued, fueled by hope, courage, and unwavering determination. As Marcus Ellis's influence grew, so did his focus on healing and reconciliation. He organized forums bringing together law enforcement officers, community members, and activists to share experiences, build empathy, and create collaborative solutions. These gatherings were often emotional, revealing wounds but also opening paths toward understanding and trust. Marcus believed that justice was not only about accountability but also about repairing relationships fractured by pain and mistrust. He emphasized restorative justice practices, encouraging dialogue that centered on healing rather than punishment alone. His advocacy extended to supporting families affected by police violence, ensuring their voices were heard and their needs addressed. Through education and engagement, Marcus aimed to cultivate a culture where respect and humanity were the foundation of policing. His own story served as a beacon, proof that transformation was possible even in the aftermath of trauma. The harsh prison sentence given to Officer Harris stood as a warning, but Marcus's vision was of a future where such violence would be unimaginable. He remained committed to fostering change through compassion, accountability, and relentless dedication. Marcus Ellis's tireless efforts also reached the judicial system, where he advocated for fair sentencing practices and accountability for law enforcement officers who violated citizens' rights. He worked with judges, lawyers, and policymakers to develop training programs addressing implicit bias and promoting equitable treatment within the courts. His influence encouraged the establishment of specialized units to review cases involving police misconduct, ensuring impartial and thorough investigations. Community trust in the legal system began to improve, As transparency and fairness became more than aspirations, they became standards. Marcus also focused on public education, launching campaigns to inform citizens of their rights and the resources available to them. He believed that empowerment through knowledge was a critical step towards systemic change. Throughout these initiatives, the ring on Marcus's finger symbolized not only his personal journey, but the broader struggle for justice and equality. His story inspired countless individuals to engage in civic life, advocate for reform, and build bridges across divides. As he looked toward the future, Marcus remained hopeful, knowing that while the road was long, each step brought society closer to the ideals of fairness, dignity, and respect for all. Years after that harrowing day when Marcus Ellis was assaulted by a racist police officer, his life had transformed into a beacon of hope and change. The city he once walked in fear now knew him as a relentless advocate for justice and equality. Marcus often reflected on his journey, the pain and the perseverance, the injustice and the victories. The scars he bore were reminders of a broken system, but also of the strength found in resilience and the power of using one's voice. His advocacy led to significant reforms, stronger accountability measures for law enforcement, improved training programs, and the establishment of independent oversight bodies. But perhaps most importantly, Marcus helped shift the cultural landscape, inspiring communities and officials alike to confront uncomfortable truths and commit to meaningful change. At public events, Marcus spoke not only as a survivor but as a leader who believed in the possibility of redemption and transformation. The law is meant to protect all, he would say, and when it fails, we must hold it accountable with unwavering resolve. His story continued to inspire activists, lawyers, and everyday citizens dedicated to building a fairer society. The prison sentence of Officer Harris served as a landmark moment, a clear message that hate and abuse of power would no longer be tolerated. But Marcus knew the fight was ongoing. Each day brought new challenges and opportunities to push the cause forward. As the sun set on his long journey, Marcus stood firm, a testament to courage, hope, and the enduring pursuit of justice.